My name is Claudia van Wyk. I'm the project coordinator today, and I'll be guiding you through the introductory slides. Following that, we'll have presentations from our esteemed presenters, who I will provide more background on in a moment. We will be hearing their insights over the next 25 minutes, and I really hope you are as excited as we are. After the presentations, Cheryl will facilitate a dynamic discussion, and this will be an excellent opportunity for everyone to engage in a meaningful dialogue. Finally, we will open the floor for a Q&A session, so please keep your questions ready. We are looking forward to a productive and engaging session with all of you. So just a quick background, the Initiative for MPTs, or IMPT, has been a cornerstone global effort to advance multipurpose prevention technologies since its launch in 2009. Since launching the IMPT, it consists of 2,000 stakeholders from nearly 24 countries. The unique initiative acts as a neutral platform, bringing together stakeholders from various backgrounds to offer essential technical guidance and strategic direction. By uniting these diverse voices, the IMPT works tirelessly to push forward the development of MPTs, which are crucial for HIV prevention and sexual reproductive health. In 2020, recognizing a need for ongoing dialogue, the IMPT introduced the Let's Talk MPTs webinar series. This series has successfully gathered global experts to discuss research and development priorities, and also fostered collaboration and networking among leaders in the field. As we dig deeper in today's session, remember that these efforts are paving the way for innovative solutions in sexual health and prevention. It's my honor and absolute privilege to introduce today's presenters. We have Kate Segal. She is a Senior Program Manager for Product Introduction and Access at AVAC, where she leads the Dual Prevention Pill Consortium, a coalition of organizations dedicated to bringing the DPP to market. Since joining AVAC, she has contributed to the development and execution of the initial market preparation and introduction strategy for the DPP, forged partnerships to advance HIV and sexual and reproductive health integration, and supported human-centered design research to drive demand generation for prevention tools. Kate holds a master's degree from the New School and a bachelor's degree from Tulane University. Next, we have Wawira Nyagah, Director of Product Introduction and Access at AVAC, and she leads AVAC's Product Introduction and Access Program, overseeing initiatives such as the Biopic Project on longer-acting PrEP and the Dual Prevention Pill Consortium. With more than 17 years of experience in health communications and marketing, she holds a master's degree in social communications and a bachelor's degree in social sciences, both from the Gregorian Pontifical University in Italy. Wawira will present on the implementation agenda based on what we know, what we hope to learn from implementation projects, and a possible spotlight on pharmacy delivery. Then we have Barbara Friedland, MPH. She has MPH. She is a Senior Associate at Population Council Center for Biomedical Research based in New York. Since joining the council over 2 decades ago, Barbara has implemented clinical and behavioral research to advance the development and introduction of microbicides, contraceptives, and MPTs. Barbara's current research focuses on how product, provider, and end-user factors influence acceptability, adherence, and method continuation. She is currently leading a study to evaluate the acceptability of the 1-year Wawira contraceptive ring, just distributed through family planning clinics in Kenya and Zimbabwe. She's also conducting studies to determine how the mechanical properties of vaginal rings, so the size, flexibility, impact, preference, adherence, and acceptability to inform future development at the Population Council and for the field. She recently completed 2 mixed method studies in Zimbabwe and South Africa to explore if a single dual prevention pill combining oral pre-exposure prophylaxis with oral contraception would increase adherence to PrEP compared to PrEP and oral contraception taken separately. In collaboration with stakeholders and with funding from USAID, Barbara also coordinated updates to the People Living with HIV Stigma Index. Updates included the development and validation of a new resilience scale for people living with HIV. Barbara has published nearly 70 articles and has presented over 100 abstracts at domestic and international conferences. She has a Master's of Public Health with a focus on community health education from Hunter College of the City University of New York. Kate, I'll be handing over to you now. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Claudia, and to my fellow presenters and to all of you for being here today. I am thrilled to be discussing my favorite topic, the dual prevention pill, or DPP, with all of you today, and really look forward to your feedback and questions. So today I will be giving a bit of an overview of the DPP with a particular focus on R&D and regulatory updates for this product. So just to start a bit zoomed out, the current HIV prevention pipeline is quite crowded. However, as you can see in this graphic, most products are in quite early stages of development, and there are really few new products coming to market in the near future. In the in development column, the second column from the left, you can see we have daily oral PrEP, and this refers to FTEF for cisgender women, which is not yet approved. We have the combination oral PrEP and oral contraceptive pill, which is the DPP, which is what we'll focus on today. And most recently, we have a monthly oral PrEP pill, currently called MK8527, that is just beginning efficacy trials. So really exciting to see multiple, oral PrEP options that are in the pipeline and could be to market in the near future. Under this third column, we have a few products that are quite newly approved and recommended, the most recent being injectable lenacapavir, which is an injection every 6 months of PrEP. And those that have been available for a little bit longer include the dapivirine vaginal ring and injectable cabotegravir, which is an injection every 2 months. The pipeline is quite exciting for HIV prevention. However, there are many more delivery forms and formulations in early phases of development. So important to note that there aren't many new products that will come to market in the near future. So that's why we're focusing on the DPP in our conversation today. Zooming in on the MPT pipeline specifically, it looks quite similar to the HIV prevention pipeline in that there are many delivery forms and formulations in development, but the vast majority are in the preclinical stage. So just to note that this is a combination of active and non-active MPTs. It is a little bit of a dated graphic. It was updated about a year ago, so I encourage everyone to check out the IMPT database for the latest updates on the MPT R&D pipeline. That said, just to draw your attention to a few bits of this graphic, excitingly, of the 33 products that we spotlight here, about half of them combine HIV prevention and contraception, or 16. Excitingly, STIs has been a growing topic in the HIV prevention space and in the integration space. So 8 of these products combine HIV prevention and prevention against other STIs. Interestingly, there are a number of vaginal ring MPTs that are in development. So important to learn lessons from the introduction of the dapivirine vaginal ring to influence the development of MPT rings in the pipeline. And lastly, this little outlier here is the dual prevention pill. So as you can see, while the MPT pipeline is diverse and exciting, there are not many that are close to market. And so the DPP is really going to, we hope, pave the way for all of these other MPTs in the pipeline, really learning lessons from its introduction and from what needs to happen to bring others to market. So what is the dual prevention pill? The DPP is a daily oral pill that prevents both HIV and pregnancy by co-formulating oral PrEP, or TDF-FTC, and combine oral contraception using the formulation levonorgestrel and ethinyl estradiol. And it does this by co-formulating these active pharmaceutical ingredients in a single pill. It has a 28-day regimen, so similar to many oral contraceptive pill packs. It will have the first 3 weeks or 21 days as the combined DPP pill. So it'll be the combined PrEP and COC pills for the first 3 weeks, and then the last 7 days will be PrEP-only pills. This corresponds to the placebo or iron pills that you see in many COC packs. However, it will contain PrEP to maintain protection against HIV during monthly bleeding. Viatris, the product developer, has thought a lot about how to make this product look and feel like a contraceptive to the extent possible, given that the pills are much larger than OCs due to the added PrEP component. And so in this vein, the packaging is quite a novel design. So it's going to be packaged in a wallet pack. And actually, it's a little... I've used this a lot, but I can show you what the DPP prototype packaging looks like. So these are weekly sheets that you can tear off by the week for ease of transport. But the idea is that Viatris wanted to move away from the pill bottle packaging to improve discretion and look and feel a bit more like a COC pack or a lifestyle product, and less like a more medicalized HIV prevention product. And I can actually show you the colors of the pills here too. So the DPP tablets, as you can see, are pink and yellow. The combined pills will be the pink tablets and the PrEP-only pills will be yellow. These colors were also selected by end users in human-centered design research. They were very clear that they wanted the pills to look more like vitamins and a women's lifestyle product and less like the blue ARVs and PrEP pills that you see. So yes, so packaging, the regimen, as well as the pill colors were all validated with potential users and aim to really enhance discretion and the feeling that this is a bit more like a lifestyle product. As I mentioned, Viatris is the product developer, and on current timelines, the DPP could receive approval in 2026. So I'm going to go into a few facets of product development and regulatory considerations. On the product development front, what's interesting about the DPP and could have implications for other MPTs in the pipeline is that because it combines two products that are already approved and introduced, it doesn't actually require a phase 3 clinical trial to demonstrate safety and efficacy. Instead, what's required is a bioequivalence study. And in theory, bioequivalence studies can speed up time to regulatory approval. So what is a bioequivalence study? A bioequivalence or BE study compares the new drug product, so the DPP with the drugs in combination, compared to its two separate components or the reference products. Now, if the DPP taken by itself is found to be bioequivalent to when users take the two components of it separately, but at the same time, the DPP is expected to have the same safety and efficacy as its reference products. So bioequivalent studies are typically much smaller and shorter duration than clinical trials. They can take place over the course of a few months with a quite small sample size. And so in theory, they could accelerate time to market. We are happy to report that the DPP achieved successful pivotal bioequivalence in 2024, which essentially gave the green light to Viatris to be able to submit it for regulatory approval. And as I mentioned here, or on the previous slide, the product and packaging attributes were validated with women as potential end users to ensure that that the product is aligned with how it could fit into their lives and lifestyles. So on the regulatory roadmap for this product, Viatris aims to accelerate access to the DPP by filing with WHO for pre-qualification and national regulatory authorities at the same time. So just to break that down, the WHO actually added the DPP to its expression of interest for pre-qualification in November of 2024. Viatris submitted the dossier to the WHO for review in January of this year. And so the review of this product for PQ is underway. We are expecting a WHO recommendation for this product in early 2026 on current timelines. So very exciting to see that process underway. In parallel, Viatris has a plan to file in 47 priority countries by the end of this year in 3 waves. So you can see the first wave of priority countries in the map on the right-hand side and the country names below it, all in sub-Saharan Africa. And so these are kind of first countries that will see dossier submissions, followed by second and third waves closely after. We expect submissions in priority 1 countries in Q3 of this year, possibly into Q4 a little bit. So September, October, November. So really exciting to see. We recognize that some countries, will review products before WHO, before they have WHO PQ. Some may not, but nonetheless, that strategy is how Viatris is moving forward. In addition, there is a mechanism called the expert review panel process, which could offer the earliest opportunity for implementation of the DPP at country level. So the Global Fund and UNFPA each have this mechanism in place, which would essentially allow for a time-limited procurement of the DPP while it is undergoing WHO review. Those conversations are also underway to pursue the ERP process. And so on current timelines, this too could be put in place in early 2026, allowing for early implementation of this product then. So this is my last slide. I wanted to just touch on a few other access levers that Viatris and the DPP consortium as partners are thinking about for laying the groundwork for approval and introduction. So in parallel with the regulatory strategy, we are thinking a lot about planning and budgeting. So one of the goals is really to inform policy at both the global and country levels that facilitates integrated service delivery. As an integrated product, the DPP brings with it some complexities in that historically siloed systems will have to be integrated at multiple levels to be able to smoothly deliver this product. And so thinking about integration at the policy level is key to be able to facilitate delivery downstream. On the delivery and supply chain front, we're really thinking about maximizing the reach of this product beyond HIV facilities at both the institutional and provider levels. So really thinking about how to leverage, and Wawira will talk more about this in her presentation, delivery channels that are quite common and popular for accessing contraception, but that might still be nascent in the PrEP space, such as pharmacies, community-based delivery, and that the DPP could really unlock channels for PrEP that to date have not really been widely utilized. We are also aiming to facilitate support at the service delivery level for ease of initiation and adherence. So recognizing that daily pill taking is quite difficult for many users, how can we make the process of starting and staying on a product that they would like to be on easier and more accessible? So really thinking about what that support looks like. And lastly, on stakeholder engagement, we are really intentionally providing support to civil society and engaging a variety of stakeholders at the country level to raise awareness and build buy-in. A lot of this effort is being done through what we call the DPP Civil Society Advisory Group, which is a group of 18 women advocates from 6 countries in sub-Saharan Africa that are all, advising on this project and this product as it moves closer and closer to market. Importantly, 7 of the 18 members are undertaking their own independent advocacy projects that they've designed and they are leading in order to build awareness in their settings in the ways that they see most fit. So it's been a really exciting effort to be on the sidelines for, and we think that it's really helping to lay the groundwork for broader sensitization of this product in focus countries. And you can see 2 of our lovely members, Nombeko and Yvette, at the launch of the DPP Decoded campaign in Kigali in July. So that's all from me, and look forward to any questions and discussion after my fellow presenters.
Thank you so much, Kate. hand over to Barbara. Thanks, Barbara.
Hi, everybody. Just checking that you can see my slides.
Not yet, Barbara.
Not yet.
I think it's working in just a moment. We can see them if you're able to put them in presenter mode.
There we go.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Thanks everybody for your attention today. I'm going to talk about two studies that we conducted that were supported by USAID through Catalyst Global, the acceptability study in South Africa, acceptability study in Zimbabwe, supported by the National Institutes of Mental Health, and both were supported by the Children's Investment Fund Foundation, which is also a big supporter of the consortium. And these are the study teams. You can see big groups of people leading this work. So as Kate just mentioned, Beatrice is developing a dual prevention pill that's co-formulated. But before that was undertaken, the Population Council led two different studies with an over-encapsulated dual prevention pill. And the idea of that was to get some early acceptability data on this concept in parallel with the development of the actual co-formulated tablet. So we hypothesized that a single dual prevention pill would be preferred, acceptable, and would increase PrEP adherence compared to PrEP alone. So in South Africa, the study was conducted with 96 women. The goal was to have women between the ages of 16 and 40, and this was in Hillbrow in Johannesburg in collaboration with WITS RHU. And then in Zimbabwe, we enrolled 30 adolescent girls and young women aged 16 to 24 in Chitabwiza outside of Harare in Zimbabwe. And that was with colleagues at the University of Zimbabwe. So the products women were using in the study were the over-encapsulated dual prevention pill, which you can see in this slide in the right top corner. And the pink and white capsules were the dual prevention pill that contained both PrEP and oral contraceptives. And similar to what Kate showed you before, there were one set of colors for the active of both products, and then the fourth week, which would be equivalent to the placebo week of the contraceptive regimen, the pills were just white capsules and contained only the Truvada. So women were using both in a crossover design, which I'll show you in a moment. And so the other regimen was just oral Truvada, as you see on the left, and Zinnia F was the oral contraceptive. And so our specific questions in the study were whether more women preferred the dual prevention pill or two separate pills, if they were more adherent to the DPP or the two pills, if the DPP was safe compared to the two pills, and which was more acceptable, and based on ease of use, product attributes, effect on sex, and side effects. So in the design, you could see that women provided informed consent, and then those who were eligible were enrolled and randomized into the study. In both countries, there was a 24-week crossover period. So people were split into either starting with regimen A first, which was the dual prevention pill, and then switching to regimen B, which was PrEP and COCs taken separately. Or if they started with regimen B, then they would switch into regimen A. In South Africa only, at the end of the 6-week crossover period, there was also a choice period where women can choose which regimen they would like to continue using for another 24 weeks. So women in both countries came for monthly visits, which included safety monitoring. They did a self-interview on a computer, so CASI questionnaire, where they were answering questions about preference, acceptability, and adherence. Monthly, they received blood tests to measure PrEP drug levels. They had product resupply, and then a subset were invited for in-depth interviews after they finished the study. In South Africa, women were 16 to 40, and in Zimbabwe, 16 to 24. Everyone had to be sexually active, which we defined as having had sex with a male partner at least once in the 3 months before screening. Women were tested for pregnancy and HIV at screening because they had to be not pregnant and not living with HIV to be in the study. They had to be at moderate or high risk of acquiring HIV based on a clinician assessment and their own self-assessment. And they had to be already using oral contraception for at least 3 months before screening. And the reason for this was because our goal was to see if you added PrEP on to people who are already used to taking contraception, how would that impact the PrEP use? The main contraindications for joining the study were things that are already contraindications for oral contraceptive or PrEP use. And we also had women swallow a very large vitamin pill at screening to make sure they'd be able to swallow the DPP pill. So what did we find? So in the 2 countries, so again, Zimbabwe was a small study of 30 women, 19 was the average age, 47% were married, and 30% were divorced. 97% had at least 1 child, and a third had at least 1 STI at screening. In South Africa, the average age was 27. The vast majority had never been married. Half had 2 or more partners, 74% had at least 1 child, and 16% had an STI. And despite our hope of enrolling some 16 and 17-year-olds, we were unsuccessful in doing that in South Africa. So we asked, what was the motivation for joining this study? And in both countries, avoiding pregnancy was strongly a motivation, with 93% in both countries saying that it was somewhat or very important to avoid getting pregnant. And there were some differences in terms of how worried people were about getting HIV in the next 3 months. In terms of preference, Zimbabwe, there were almost 2/3 prefer the DPP versus about 1/3 approved the 2 separate pills, where in South Africa, it was the opposite. However, despite their preferences, there were very few differences in acceptability. So in overall acceptability, in terms of the DPP, which is the green columns, and the 2 separate pills is the blue, you could see that 85% liked the DPP very much in Zimbabwe, and 69% liked the 2 separate pills very much, and 31% liked it. And in South Africa, the liked very much between the 2 regimens was even closer. In Zimbabwe, no participants said that either pill was too big to swallow. The majority said that they were both big, but they were able to swallow. In South Africa, however, most participants thought that they were too big and they were able to swallow them, but there were a small minority who said that it was so big they couldn't swallow it. Side effects also differed between the 2 countries. In Zimbabwe, most participants reported that they had no side effects with either regimen, whereas in South Africa, most everyone reported that they did have side effects with both regimens, but a minority said that the side effects bothered them a lot. In both countries, participants thought that both regimens either improved or had no effect on their sex lives. And no one in South Africa said it made their sex life worse. And 1 person said that the 2 separate pills made her sex life worse in Zimbabwe. So now I'll talk about adherence. Adherence is extremely complicated to measure, which I'm sure you are all familiar with. So we measured adherence in 3 different ways. So we measured it by self-report, by pill count, and with a biomarker. So by self-report, we had 3 questions that were in the computer-assisted self-interviewing. So women answered these questions by themselves in a questionnaire at every visit. And we asked, how many days did you miss a dose since your last visit? How good of a job did you do taking your medication? And how often did you take the medication the way you were supposed to? And those questions actually come from the ARB adherence literature, where these questions are very highly correlated with viral load suppression. And they've been used in other prevention studies as well. We also did pill counts, where the pharmacy would count the pills that were returned versus how many were expected to be returned. And then the main adherence measure in both countries was a biomarker, which was tenofovir diphosphate levels in blood spots that were taken every month. And so we had certain cutoffs of how much of the drug we were looking for to see if people had taken at least 4 doses of PrEP in the past week. So that's the threshold that we were looking at to assess adherence. And not surprisingly, the adherence varied quite a bit by the measure, but not by the regimen. So this slide shows adherence to both PrEP taken separately as well as the DPP. There was no difference, so we combine all the data here. In Zimbabwe, in both countries, based on women's self-report, more than 97% of the doses were taken. By pill count, it was more than 95% of the doses taken in Zimbabwe and 95% in South Africa. But when we looked at the blood levels, the results were quite different. So in Zimbabwe, 10% of the participants were always adherent, meaning at all visits that they came to, their blood level showed that they had taken at least 4 doses in the past week. 31% were sometimes adherent and 59% were never adherent. And in South Africa, the results were similar, with 6% being always adherent, 23% sometimes adherent, and 71% never adherent. Safety did not differ by regimen. There were no deaths, no serious adverse events, no, in Zimbabwe and South Africa, 2 unrelated serious adverse events. There were no discontinuations due to adverse events. 2 women became pregnant in Zimbabwe, both during the DPP regimen. 9 became pregnant in South Africa, 5 during the 2-pill regimen, and 4 during the DPP. There were no seroconversions in Zimbabwe. There were 3 in South Africa, 1 during the 2-pill regimen and 2 during the DPP. There were no incident STIs in Zimbabwe and 4 in South Africa. So we asked women when they exited about their willingness to use or recommend the dual prevention pill. In Zimbabwe, 54% said that they liked and didn't mind taking the DPP every day. In South Africa, 38% liked it and 59% did not mind it. 100% of Zimbabwean participants and 96% said that they are likely to recommend the DPP to a friend. In terms of willingness to pay, here's where it gets kind of interesting, because in Zimbabwe, when the majority said that they would be willing to pay a small fee, whereas in South Africa, less than half said that they would be willing to pay a small fee. 12% in Zimbabwe said that they would be willing to use it if it was free, compared to 39% in South Africa. And a minority said that they wouldn't use it even if it was free. And there was an array of ideas of where to get it from and whom to get it from. And I think this will fit into some of what Wawira will be talking about in terms of implementation studies. So our key takeaways, again, this was an over-encapsulated dual prevention pill as a proxy for the co-formulated pill in development. Choice is important. So clearly, a lot of women wanted the dual prevention pill and a lot of women prefer the 2 separate pills. The DPP was preferred in Zimbabwe, but 2 separate pills were preferred in South Africa. And our belief is that expanding prevention options may increase the demand for overall prevention. Considerations were the size and the packaging of the DPP, and also counseling and support on dual prevention for effective use will be really important. I just wanted to talk briefly about an upcoming study, which will be a very similar design with the actual Viatris dual prevention pill. This is HPTN, or the HIV Prevention Trials Network of the NIH, protocol number 104. And in that study, we are primarily looking at adherence to the dual prevention pill versus the 2-pill regimen. So instead of the pills that we used in our study, we'll be using the pills that Kate showed you in her presentation. And the secondary objectives are preference, adherence and persistence during the choice period, tolerability and side effects, and acceptability. That study is also an open label, multi-site randomized crossover trial comparing the DPP to the 2-pill regimen. It will be a total of 300 people, 16 to 39. 200 will be 18 and older, and 100 adolescents. And so I thank you, and we'll stop there and look forward to any questions later.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Wow, super interesting. Wawira, I'll hand over to you. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much, Claudia. And I'm really happy to be having this webinar. And I'll be sharing on the initial implementation agenda for the dual prevention pill next. So earlier, Kate did a beautiful overview of the many different moving parts of the dual prevention pill project. And one of the things that we needed to do was to assess the potential implementation pathways for DPP. For us to be able to do this, we conducted an analysis across 5 countries in Eastern and Southern Africa to first map the potential barriers and facilitators towards country-level introduction and scale-up of DPP. Secondly, to highlight key research gaps, questions, hypotheses around potential users and delivery channels. And third, to identify implementation platforms in those 5 sub-Saharan countries, including Kenya, South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Uganda. So for us to be able to do this, we conducted 71 key informant interviews with senior researchers, scientists, MOHs, implementers, clinicians, and pharmacists. And the most important thing is that most of these participants had already been involved in introducing new PrEP products, so their insights were really grounded on real-world experience. Next. So looking across I'm going to be presenting on the findings, and the first one is on the health systems. So looking at the health systems, a few themes emerged from the many countries. First of all, we saw that regulatory approval is critical, with WHO pre-qualification seen as necessary step for country-level registration. Costs also came out as another big driver, since decisions about adding new products to essential medicines list often come down to affordability. Then, country-specific implementation evidence will be important to guide things like forecasting, demand estimation, and cost-effectiveness assessments. And so what we are seeing is early introduction of the DPP is most feasible through HIV departments, where providers already are familiar with ARV-based products and routine monitoring. And finally, we saw that, or what we had is that DPP creates a valuable opportunity for integration if we can be able to align with HIV prevention and SRH health guidelines, reporting, and other platforms such as the technical working groups. Next slide, please. So on service delivery, what we had is that DPP was seen as a well-situated to simplified and differentiated delivery models. And one of the things that came up, and I think this was mentioned when we were starting the webinar, is that pharmacies in particular were highlighted, especially in Kenya, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, because they are accessible and they're open for longer periods and provide a non-judgmental environment to potential end users. However, if we were to leverage that platform, some regulatory constraints exist, and they would need to be, addressed. So one of the things that was proposed was that if a country chose to use the pharmacy model, then we would need to engage the pharmacy councils early so that we can be able to discuss with them. Then the other thing that came up is that counseling and uptake processes also need to be streamlined, because pharmacists won't be able to deliver, comprehensive counseling, but they can provide key messages. So the other thing that came up is peer educators were also recommended, especially in places like Zimbabwe and South Africa. And this would build on the successes that have been seen in both oral prep and the ring introduction. Next. So we did ask a couple of questions, and we have themed them according to 4 themes. And one of the things that we thought, or that was recommended as key to implementation questions, specifically on users, what was recommended is that we need to understand barriers and facilitators to uptake and continued use of DPP. How do people make decisions in terms of starting, switching, or discontinuing a product? And what types of messaging and demand generation, strategies would be most effective to reach potential users for DPP? Next, Kate. So on effective use and monitoring, it will be important to understand how DPP compares to other products such as oral prep in terms of patterns of use and protection. And we would love to understand what's the optimal use and how does that really look like, and could DPP create opportunities for less frequent HIV services such as HIV testing, or even provide an opportunity for self-monitoring when we use things like HIV self-tests. Next. On delivery, what we would want to understand is what is the most effective service delivery platform for reaching different groups, and how do we adapt and simplify counseling and follow-up so that DPP fits smoothly into the existing systems, and whether this would be through clinics, community channels, or pharmacies. Next. And finally, on cost effectiveness, it would be very important to understand the value add of DPP in today's, already growing prevention toolkit, our toolbox. How cost effective is it compared with existing options? Not just the product itself, but also different, in terms of delivery mechanisms for reaching specific user groups. So together, these questions will help us in understanding the real-world role of DPP and how it's best to introduce and scale it up. Next. So to guide our next steps, what we did is we developed a criteria to map implementation approaches and the potential partners. And the framework that you can see on the screen helps us to assess both the readiness of partners to support the DPP rollout, and also whether critical implementation questions on delivery and use are also going to be addressed through those platforms. Next. So we also tried to assess what were the recommended delivery platforms across the 5 countries that we spoke to. And what we had the key informants say is that they endorsed DPP introduction to women aged over 18 years of age, while we saw also some projects in South Africa, Kenya, and Zambia were more situated to investigating use of DPP in the ages 15 to 17-year-olds. Or adolescent girls, and this is because they have, more, the policies in the countries are more favorable, and they allow for lower age of consent. So delivery to female sex workers was recommended more in Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. And what we saw across all the 5 countries is that we have implementing partners in public health facilities and both other community-based delivery models, including youth centers, peer models. In South Africa, that's where we saw the most diverse, mix of delivery channels, and these span across mobile clinics, courier services, schools, and universities that we can, explore in terms of delivering DPP. Next. So Where do we go from here? Looking ahead, what we'll come across is that sustainability and health system efficiency will be central. We're also seeing that pharmacy and private sector models, including social marketing, show a real promise. So those, I think, should be explored. And then in addition, we have community-based delivery, such as through family planning, distributors, and this would particularly, create an opportunity for integration. Further, we should also focus on settings where HIV prevention and SRH services are already integrated, and this can help us test the innovative models to scale. And in the midst of all this, we need to really be mindful of the shifting donor landscape. For instance, the recent, U.S. government reductions, and these really have impacted the country level priorities. Next. So in conclusion, the DPP holds a great promise as a new prevention option that can meet needs of women and adolescents in diverse settings. And the implementation agenda that I just shared helps us or outlines today where we have opportunities in terms and where we have challenges and the critical questions that we need to ask so that we can be able to have a successful introduction and scale up of DPP. Thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to having a chat in the next couple of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wawira, and all of our presenters. That was an incredible, I want to say overview, but really the details were fascinating. Thank you for your time and all the amount of work that you put into your studies and sharing that with us today. Let's jump to questions with some great answers. We have about 10 minutes. We invite everyone to please join in. This is your chance to really talk with the experts and dig in a little bit more. I saw in the chat that Richard had asked the question and Diva had asked a question and Barbara responded. I wanted to make sure that your questions were answered, or if you wanted to, you're welcome to, I invite you to come off mute if you would like. To further ask questions or any clarifications. And if not, I see that Jessica has a question. So Jessica, let's go ahead. We'll jump to you. You're welcome to come off mute and ask your question if you feel comfortable doing so. That's okay, Jessica. I will ask it for you. Thank you very much. I also didn't want to put you on the spot. Jessica is asking, did you evaluate compliance and barriers to it among the study participants?
So the first part of the question about evaluating compliance, I'm not sure if we're using different words to mean the same thing, but the adherence is what we were, adherence and compliance, I think we're using those interchangeably. So yes, we evaluated adherence based on pill counts, self-reports, and the levels of tenofovir diphosphate in dry blood spots. We also did look at barriers to adherence. However, one of the tricky things about our study was that a lot of the women in the in-depth interviews didn't talk that much about the barriers to taking the DPP. So I think that we have some ideas about what the barriers were, but a lot of them said everything was wonderful and great. And so it's a little bit hard to tease out, but my colleague Sanyukta Mathur, who led the qualitative part of the study, is also on the line. And so I don't know, Sanyukta, if you wanted to maybe come off mute or add anything to what I've said about understanding the barriers.
I think, Barbara, you've captured it well. I think in the context of a clinical trial, it's really hard to get that kind of deeper understanding of real challenges, or, women may be unwilling to state the challenges that they were facing. But I do think in a clinical setting, women are so excited about the potential for this product that I think when it's rolled out, we'll have more of an idea on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please feel free to the audience to raise your virtual or your real hand and ask any questions, or to drop your questions in chat. Meanwhile, I do have a question. The data was incredibly compelling and interesting about the differences that you saw between the Zimbabwe participants and the South African participants in the study. Would you be able to talk a little bit about what factors you think may explain the differences really across the board that you saw?
Yeah, so I guess the difference in preference, again, I think part of it in the Zimbabwe study, it's a very small number of people. So of the 30 young women who were enrolled, only 26 actually finished the entire study. So it's a tiny sample. So I think, you know, we don't want to make too much of the differences between the two countries based on that. I do think, you know, their relationships were, more of them were married. And so in terms of facilitators to taking the DPP, definitely having a partner support was one of the things that helped women be adherent to whatever extent they were. And so since the majority were married in Zimbabwe versus in the South Africa, the majority were not married, that I think is one of the big differences, potentially.
Yeah, so interesting. Sorry, I missed. Was that something that was planned in the study, or was that just a chance of what happened in the end?
So the age differences were planned, but the marital status, differences in marital status or number of children or anything else was not planned. Senyukta has her hand raised, so maybe she wants to add something.
Please.
Yeah, sorry, just I will add that, again, just these are smaller studies, so I think the site level changes are interesting, but I would caution on deep interpretation of those. There are some contextual differences, meaning that in Zimbabwe, there is a longer history of using oral contraceptive pills and a kind of a norm around that. Although all the women in our study were supposed to be on oral contraceptives, so it should not have played a part. The one piece I do want to note is that in both places, partner dynamics, meaning if there was relationship conflict, if there was sexual violence, if women had lower interpersonal power, that was associated with a stronger preference for the DPP. So it may be that this is a good option for women who are in challenging partnerships. So I think, right, going back to providing women with options that really work for their lives and their personal circumstances. So I think this will become very important as the product is rolled out. Thanks.
That's really interesting insight. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions that someone would like to ask? Richard, I see that you have put something in chat for Wawira. Would you like to come off mute, or I'm also happy to read it? Okay, I'll go ahead. I'll go ahead and read. Wawira, this is for you. Did you explore the kind of training healthcare providers will need to effectively administer the DPP? He has a couple of questions. We'll just start with that.
Okay, and my colleague Kate can also come in and add to that. I think within that assessment, we did not dive into the kinds of trainings that would be needed. But I think beyond, I mean, training about the product, I think one of the most critical things would be about the counseling, because counseling for a dual prevention, product or a multi-purpose product is way different than when you counsel for one product. It's different than when you counsel for contraceptive or when you counsel for HIV. So providers would really need training in terms of counseling. And I think we already have some sense or a guide in terms of the counseling materials. But then, Kate, did I? Yeah, okay. I see you've added that. Yes, we developed counseling messages. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. And just to say, just to add, sorry, Cheryl, these counseling messages also informed the counseling approaches in the acceptability studies that Barbara and Sanyukta have shared about. So we're really we're trying to sort of learn as we go in terms of what resonates and what might need to be tweaked for counseling in real world settings.
Thank you. I'll continue on with the question then is, are there perceived challenges being perceived on DPP being integrated into existing healthcare services, such as family planning and HIV clinics? And on that same note, what potential issues do you anticipate from regulators?
I'm happy to start, but Wawira and Barbara, I know, can speak to this as well. Definitely there are some perceived challenges, being that this product would effectively, bring PrEP into certain FP settings where perhaps providers have not yet delivered PrEP before, and vice versa. So in HIV facilities, or they may not be offering family planning, so the DPP would be that bridge to providing contraception as well. And so we definitely foresee training as a key component of being able to effectively deliver this product, and for both providers and users to be able to understand, how to use it, and to be able to offer it as a choice alongside other family planning or contraceptive as well as PrEP methods, given that it straddles both. In terms of regulators, yeah, this is a really interesting question. So it definitely has its opportunities and challenges, as explained regarding bioequivalence. In some ways, BE offers kind of a quicker pathway to approval, given that its components are already approved and rolled out. However, because the DPP straddles two disease areas, it does need to be domiciled somewhere, and there needs to be sort of an owner of sorts to facilitate the regulatory review process. And so those conversations will need to happen where, perhaps one therapeutic area would particularly lead review of a given product with a single indication. Now there's a bit of complexity with dealing with multiple indications to review a product. So that is an added complexity that we'll see with other MPTs in the pipeline, as well as the DPP. There are also some manufacturing hurdles that could be seen in the process, because typically hormonals and ARVs cannot be manufactured in the same site. And so we have seen some interesting sort of complexities with actually manufacturing the DPP that have had to be addressed in the R&D process.
Thank you so much. I know that I could go on with tons of questions, and we're incredibly excited. This is the first MPT that is hopefully going to roll out very soon. So we invite everyone to, stay abreast of what's going on, join the IMPT network, and reach out to AVAC, reach out to Pop Cancel. Claudia, I'm going to send it back to you to wrap it up.
Right. Thanks, Cheryl. I just want to quickly say thank you to our presenters. With events like this, I'm just reminded how much I adore technology, giving us this opportunity to live and learn together for an hour, although we're all scattered across the globe. So to Kate, Wawira, and Barbara, thank you so much for setting aside time, for being with us today and sharing what you've learned, what you've done. And as Cheryl said, it's so fascinating. I also want to say thank you to NICHD. Without your generous support, this would not be possible. Before you jump off the call, I just want to remind you, we would love to stay connected. So head over to www.impt.org, sign up, and that way you'll be connected to us and hear from us concerning the next Let's Talk MPTs webinar. So thank you for joining us. I hope you all have a wonderful day, evening, wherever you are, and hopefully we'll see you with the next webinar. Thank you.